is himself the senior student of later and even more international famous Professor Zheng. Dr. Walls-Kaufman has traveled the world for competitions and won many top honors. And that's very impressive. And he's currently working on a book on chiropractic history and research. His speech title is Tai Chi Fa Jin. You see, actually, he has a Chinese on his slides. An exploration of concept in Yang-style Tai Chi Chuan. Please help me welcome Dr. Walls-Kaufman.
That one?
Yeah, okay, just keep a distance.
You bet.
Don't come too close.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. So, I've been trying to learn Chinese for a long time. So that's not my Chinese. That's my older brother, Julian. Thank you for translating my slides. So I brought pretty much the same lecture from last year, because last year we got way behind time, and so I did like a 10-minute thing. And it's such a good topic that that I wanted to make sure that we covered it. So by a show of hands, how many people practice Tai Chi practitioners are in here? How many of you practice Tuai Shou? Show of hands. How many people practice Tuai Shou in your Tai Chi? Tuai Shou. Push hands. Tuai Shou. Higher. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, so how many of you practice Tai Chi but don't practice push hands? Okay, not that many. Some. So I would urge you to overcome your shyness, right, and practice Tuai Shou. Professor Zheng considered it an essential part of Tai Chi learning. And I think the reason is because, you know, there's meditation all over the Eastern world. But the martial arts lore, the Qi, cultivating Qi, is only in China. And so none of these martial arts, none of these meditative disciplines have a lore of martial arts, because the body doesn't develop in the same way. They have prana and they talk about internal energy, et cetera, but it doesn't develop in the same way. This is unique to Tai Chi and to the Neijia. And I think probably the big difference is because, you know, the seated disciplines, all the meditative disciplines, you're sitting down. And one of the first things we learn in the Neijia is that you're going to do your standings, you're going to do your meditation standing up. So there's obviously a big difference. Chuan only doesn't really have postures. It just has standing meditation. And yet these guys are very, very good at push hands. Their internal cultivation is very obvious. So I think that just taking your meditation and standing gives you something very, very different. And then, of course, in Tai Chi we start moving. So it's moving meditation, as Mr. Bob Smith, I think, coined the term. It might have been Professor Zheng. But then that takes meditation to even a much more difficult level. And then another thing is Ding Shi, you know, standing postures, you know, taking your Tai Chi postures and holding them in order to cultivate your internal. That's very difficult too. And of course you want to eat some bitter. The more bitter you eat, the better it is. So, you know, you're holding your posture and you're trying to keep a mane that is relaxed and contained. And then the next level is somebody's attacking you, somebody's pushing you, and you're trying to remain inside your Tai Chi envelope mentally and physically. And so each one of these stages is like an accelerant for your Tai Chi development. And of course, one of the manifestations, or one of the key parts of push hands is Fa Jin, projecting strength. And that's a lot of fun. And it's sort of like a study that needs to be looked at all of its own. So, overview. Fa Jin is widely regarded as the culmination of Tuisho push hands, generally viewed as the way to make opponents fly across the room, which is very exciting. Certainly can be effective against a single attacker, okay, because it takes a lot of focus. You know, you can't, you know, I think you'd have to be at a very high level, you know, where you could do multiple attacks or attackers. Excellent Tuisho training exercise, and probably should not be used as a defense strategy due to the complexity of the technique, except by expert practitioners. So, you know, there's been a lot of talk about how Tai Chi compares with MMA people. And I think that if you're a Tai Chi practitioner, you'd have to be insane to just go against a very well-trained MMA person. Just like a person off the street would be insane to think that they could beat you in Tuisho. MMA is a distillation of the most efficient fighting techniques, the most efficient pieces of fighting techniques from all over the world, and people say 5 of them, 5 different schools of thought. And they focus on these very efficient training techniques. And if you go in cold turkey, you know, you really ought to have your head examined. Many of the top MMA people, I have assurances from my students who also do MMA. They tell me that the top people in MMA are very interested in Tai Chi and doing Tai Chi, and that it helps their MMA, because as Professor Jung used to say, you know, tennis won't help your Tai Chi, but Tai Chi will help your tennis. Tiddlywinks won't help your Tai Chi, but Tai Chi will help your tiddlywinks. Soccer won't help your Tai Chi, but Tai Chi will help your soccer. So MMA is not really going to help your Tai Chi, but Mr. Smith, my first Tai Chi teacher and one of Professor Jung's most illustrious students, he had a very good friend, and oh shoot, now his name slips me, but he was a huge guy from the Netherlands, and he was a bouncer and a street fighter, and you know, studied boxing. John Blooming, yes, not the judo guy, but the fighter guy. Yeah, John Blooming. And John Blooming was giving an interview to a martial arts channel, and he said, in a fight, the guy who gets hit in the face first is going to lose. So in Tai Chi, you know, we're prepared for, you know, all of these things that we encounter in push hands, and an MMA person is going to look to hit you in the face first. And in, you know, Tai Chi internal cultivation, I'm very comfortable with getting hit and kicked anywhere in the body, anywhere in the legs, because of, you know, Tai Chi cultivation. I'm not comfortable with getting hit in the face. I'm sure I could endure it better than a lot of people who are untrained in Tai Chi. But being a chiropractor and a researcher in brain and neurology, the shock of being hit is going to stun you, and there's the opening, and Lord knows what happens. So I think that Tai Chi is getting a bad rap because of this, because the training of Tai Chi and push hands makes you very, very solid and gives you a very, very powerful base. And all martial arts stem from that. Everything that you want to do stems from that. Okay, 4 essential pieces of the Fa Jin. Next slide, please. So the right opportunity. Professor Jung talked about the wave of resistance. So this is when a person, their survival reflexes kick in, and they're not going to yield any ground. They're going to try and hold on to their territory and not be thrown to the ground. That's actually your opportunity, because they're using Li, and it creates a little bit of a wiggle, an instability. Professor Jung said you generate power through the feet and the legs. Of course, we know this in Tai Chi. You know, the legs and the feet and the torso, and connecting the body That only, of course, that makes sense just from everyday physics. But of course, as we advance in Tai Chi and the body really starts becoming one piece, either through the smooth muscle, if you don't believe in the Qi, or the Qi and the smooth muscle, if you believe in the Qi. So the body becomes one piece and really is integrated, as a whole and becomes extremely powerful. 3, aim up through the center like an arrow. Professor said, you've got to find the center of the person and shoot up slightly through them to make them go upward. And there's a law in physics, if we have physicists here. If you control the center of the object, then you control the object. So that should always be what you're looking for in push hands, is you're trying to find their center. And of course, in a beginner, it's a very, very big thing. And the better we get in Tai Chi, the smaller it gets. But also, you develop the smooth muscle, you develop the Qi, so that you just anchor to the ground much more solidly. And the last one, Professor Sa, you must have internal power. You don't have to have internal power, but really that is our big advantage. Otherwise, it's if you're a big guy and you're pushing a little person, you just have a mass advantage. If you're an adult and you're pushing with a child, you have a mass advantage. In fact, for a beginner, if you have children or grandchildren, and you can play a little game with them, where you can try and find their center and make them resist, and just try and make them, Professor Jung said, try and make both of their feet go up. If you only make one foot go up, you haven't done it right. So, you're trying to make both of their feet pop up, and you can really, get a good sense of what's going on. So, wave of resistance, they come here and they totter a little bit, and then you're underneath them and going through the center and slightly up. You have to have a momentum or a positional or strength advantage or the internal power advantage over them in order to have the best effect. Next slide, please. Thank you. Fajin Benlo, who recently passed away, said Fajin is just like catching a ball and then throwing it. The person is the ball, and you're catching them and throwing them. Or you're going after them, coming into them, finding them, catching that ball, and throwing it. Wave of resistance is the opponent's manifesting a defense of resistance in order to carry out a move against you, implementing muscular power toward an end. And Professor Jung said, feeling that wave of resistance takes a long time. And what this is connected to, it may seem sort of miraculous and fanciful, but actually there's a great deal of medical research now on subtle energy. So these are very, very low amplitudes of bioelectricity, bioenergy in the brain and the body. And that's sort of like the levers. So to make my arm move like this, it starts with very, very subtle things inside. And it all begins in the brain. So the brain marshals energy to make a move. And then a larger bit of energy has to be gathered in order to move into the muscles. And then yet another larger wave of energy has to go into the muscles to make the arm move. So it all starts with very subtle energies in the brain. And researchers have found that the human brain is extraordinarily sensitive to these subtle energies, especially with training. And so this is an aspect of Tai Chi push hands, that as we're pushing with the opponent, and we do, those of us who have practiced it, we know we are getting a sense of what they want to do, what they're going to do. And this is all these subtle energies of the body marshaling resources before they actually make a move. Another part of it is the fact that in Tai Chi we just become so doggone thick and heavy and powerful that it really doesn't matter what they do. we beat them before they get there to us. So that really has two aspects to it. One is subtle energy, very, very sensitive. You know what they're going to do before they do it because you can feel that energy coming. The other aspect of it is your root, your Taiji density is thick enough that if they do it, it really doesn't matter. The body is so powerful. The body is a hand. So instead of pushing them with your hands, you're just pushing them with your body that's very, very powerful here. So you haven't moved, and yet you beat them because when they come there, they find, oh my gosh, he's very thick, he's very powerful, and he's taking advantage of what I did against him. Internal power refers to the peculiar power cultivated by long Taiji practice, i.e. the qi, or perhaps the accumulation of smooth muscle as verified by numerous medical authorities studying the health benefits of Taiji. So, a lot of people, I don't know, they don't believe in Taiji, and qi, that's fine. I think you come to a point where there's just no other way to describe it. Qi is an engine for cultivating qi, and that's all there is to it. But if you don't buy that, all medical authorities who have looked at Taiji in earnest see the tremendous change in the body to smooth muscle, and that's really, really good for your health, and it's very, very powerful stuff. Internal power, root, is much like the anchor or the brace behind a cannon that gives it the foundation to propel the cannonball with great force. If the cannon is not braced to the ground, or weighs less than the cannonball, then the cannon will fly off as the projectile. Without root, one practitioner has little advantage over the opponent, and Tuisha looks like wrestling. So if two people are relatively equally matched, and one doesn't have a mass advantage, even an this internal mass advantage over the other one, it looks like wrestling. And so then you're going to have to practice Fajin. You have to be very cooperative with each other. And of course, as Professor said, you should practice with all different types of people because everybody's different. So if we had a cannon and we kicked up the legs and then we blasted off a shot, you know, if that cannon weighs less than the cannonball, you know, it's going to go out that window. That cannon has to be anchored to shoot that cannonball. So it's very much the same thing. And as people get better in Taiji and they have more of that relative advantage over others, that's kind of what we're looking at. Next slide, please. I already talked about this. The wave of resistance is that subtle energy. Yes? For good Tifang, we want to have very light touch so as not to alert our opponent to our plan to attack the wave of resistance. We want to let the wave of resistance pass. The wave of resistance is they're throwing themselves at us to keep us from moving them. So we don't want to collide with that. We want to kind of get out of the way of that, let it go. And then once that's passed, it's like the other side of the wave. Then they kind of have lost their balance. They're at a reset, and you're taking advantage of that reset. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, let me go back to that slide. We want to let the wave pass, get in rhythm on the other side, under the opponent, and then project the opponent away with whatever degree of power we choose. So we all have heard about using 4 ounces in Taiji. But Professor said that when you're actually pushing somebody out, you use whatever force is necessary. So it's going to take much less force because you haven't met their resistance. You haven't met their attack. You've let that attack go, and then you step into the breach. You step over that wave, and then, oh, you know, that's when you do it. And if they're a big person, or if you're slightly off their center, you know, oh, it might take more power. Okay, next slide. Methods for increasing internal power and push-hand sensitivity. So my older brother Julian earlier talked about you know, your Taiji practice. Basically, and you know, it's all the same thing. If you want to be serious about getting health benefits from Taiji, Whether you want to practice Tui Shou or not, whether you want to look at the martial arts aspects, it really doesn't matter. You have to do it the same way. And I think you have to, chirku and push yourself. And, get those legs working and meet yourself wherever you are and go a little bit beyond where you are to challenge yourself and make sure that you're progressively challenging yourself as you go along. And the health benefits that come from this appear to be very clear. From my reading, there's like two schools of thought in Tai Chi research. There's those that say it really doesn't have that much effect, and there's that say it is clearly the best thing going, as the Harvard Medical School book on Tai Chi says. And I made a guess a long time ago that it was the seriousness of the practitioner. It was how much of serious Tai Chi work that was determining those two results. So, holding postures, let's go back to that slide, please. Okay, holding posture work, Ding Shi. So this was very big with Professor Zhang and Ben Lo. So you're separating weight, as Ben Lo said. You're taking a step towards your posture and holding that foot up about an inch off the ground and working with your balance there and holding it maybe for a few breaths. And then you move into your posture. Next, Ding Shi or standing work. Ben Lo would say, pick your favorite posture and hold it for a long time. Professor Zhang, in his black book, I think Tai Chi Calisthenics, Tai Chi New Method, the one with the black cover. He says in there, he shows the picture of himself, doing standing, and he says specifically, do not ignore this method. Do not ignore this practice. Okay, so exercises to prompt the push-ins partner to employ force. This can be, okay. So if you want to explore Tifang and that wave of resistance, you get with a person and you stand in your 70-30 stance. And Professor would have people slide back all of their weight to 100% and then try and neutralize here. And then what you're trying to do is find that resistance or find their center. And don't just blast through it, but sort of get them to wiggle a little bit, okay? Kind of wiggle them like a blade of grass. Find that, get in rhythm with that, and then push through it. So, and at Shizhong School, they had a long hall, a long wall, a brick wall with varnish on it, very shiny, very pretty. It was a beautiful place, like an art museum. I've never seen a martial arts school anywhere in the world that looked like that. And so that's where people practice push-hands. And the people who had their back against the wall would practice neutralizing. And the people facing the wall, pushing them, would focus on the yang, or the pushing them out. 5 minutes. Great, thank you. So, get with your person, and if you find a wall, and have them go back, so they're intentionally not fighting you, so that you can find that resistance, and get in rhythm with their body, because everybody's different. And then pushing through it and practicing the method. I have a student here, Clement. Come on, Clement. Yeah. Yeah. Clement, he's your typical Tai Chi guy. He can beat the hell out of anybody in this room. But he's just going to be my push hands dummy. So he's standing here, and I'm just, so when we push on somebody, just, yeah. So, we can see them wiggle and waggle, right? You can really see it here, because there's 2 areas where we're really quite weak. It's across the shoulders, across the body here, right? But also from the front of the body. So as I push on him, look at him wiggle. So that's what we're looking for. So he's wiggling, and if he pushes at me, like I said, I don't want to just try and confront that. So if I'm pushing on Clement, and I push slowly. Now resist. So he's resisting me. I don't want to, let's stand this way. I'm pushing on him, and he's resisting me. I don't want to just try and blow through this, right? It's not efficient. So you want to let go and let him come back to rest. You see, that's the wave of resistance. Resist me again.
Okay.
So I'm pushing him. I'll tell you.
Okay.
I'm going to push.
Okay.
So I'm pushing him, right?
Okay.
He's resisting, and I let go. All right? So that's what it is. I don't want to just kind of like football and blow through him. Okay? So take a slightly larger stance. That's on that same line. So if we practice, Fa Jin this way, it's really hard. He's just going to instinctively turn your waist, and neutralize. It's a lot easier with beginners to come on this line because it's harder for them to get out of the way because it's just going to be tighter. So as I push, go away from me. Yeah, so now he's really running out of resources, right? And then he's going to get desperate and he's going to say, oh, I'm going to fight and try and stand here. And that's when I let go. And that's when I come back. Okay? So when you're practicing with your partner, you feel that where he's, oh yeah, right? He's coming back at me. So then I let that go. I don't jump on that. I don't try and, pulverize him with that. I try and work with it. So here, okay, all right, so go back, right. So there it is, and, right? He resisted me, I let it go, and then I go again, and I just try and make him hop. Here, let's do it again. So I'm pushing. Yeah, he's resisting me all the way now. Now, don't resist me all the way now. Go back and then resist, okay? That's what Professor had people practice. Go back, sit back here. Don't fight them up front, okay? Now, this is just for training. You don't go into an alley and fight this way, right? This is Tai Chi training. And for loosening your body, right? Each level is an accelerant for your Tai Chi practice. Okay, so go back. Good. All right, so there he is. There, now he's fighting me. Now I stop. Up. Right? And so it's timing and getting in rhythm with him. Remember, we're mostly water. So we're really kind of like a big garbage bag full of water. So if you filled up a garbage bag full of your weight in water and kind of thought about sloshing it around, that's the kind of rhythm that we're talking about. So you don't, if that garbage bag is coming at you full of water, you don't want to meet it at the apex. You want it to go by, 1 minute, you want it to go by and then push on it, just like a swing, just like catching a ball. All right, one more time. So now Clement is going to resist me just like he was resisting me, okay? So I'm pushing him, right? No, just start resist from the outset, right? So I have to get down underneath, up. Right? Feel his resistance. Don't fight it. Get in rhythm with it. And underneath, and then push him out. It's a lot of fun. It takes a lot of sensitivity. You'll gain sensitivity about their subtle energy. Right? When you're pushing. You'll gain energy about subtle energy. When you're the receiving, you're going to gain a lot of a benefit from trying to relax and deal with that hardship. Yes. Okay, so any quick questions? Or is there time? There shouldn't be any questions.
Yeah,
that was very thorough.
We have a question.
One question.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, you are very trained practitioner, and your opponent is less trained, so you can quickly, you can do this as you demonstrated.
Yes.
But if you have one opponent at the same level like you,
Yes.
how do you do it?
Okay, then you have to have the right opportunity. You have to have, the right advantage. And if you're both wrestling and you're both at the same level, it's really going to be very, very difficult. You need to start, with the training wheels, with a friend, cooperative practice, where they're sitting back and making themselves vulnerable so that you can feel this kind of thing, right? We're kind of enlarging it. This is what we're looking for, and then boom. So if they're your level of skill